Hello friends, and welcome back to Dole a Day, a place where we talk Disney and occasionally talk eating disorder recovery. So this video is going to be focused on eating disorder recovery. So if you came here for the Disney, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I hope that you'll stick with me anyway because I think this is a really important topic that I really want to spread awareness about so that fewer lives are claimed by eating disorders every year. So a couple of weeks ago, I put out some feelers on Instagram and on Facebook for people to ask any questions that they might have about eating disorders or eating disorder recovery. I realized that eating disorders are very misunderstood in the sense that they're sensationalized in media in many, many ways, in movies, in books, things like that. They're very often misrepresented or they're overrepresented by one particular population, like rich white females. And there are some people with eating disorders that are not accurately or ever represented. And so a lot of misinformation is out there, and since I've been there, I thought that maybe I can answer a few of the questions that you guys might have. So I'm going to get right to it. There are quite a few questions, and I'm sure that I'll have quite a bit to say about many of them. So I've got my phone right here, and I'm going to read the first question. Okay, so the first question is, when did you lose your hair? What are your feelings about hair? Okay, so for those of you who didn't know, during the course of my eating disorder, I did like completely lose my hair. Like I basically went bald. So this question is really interesting because my hair loss was actually a combination of two mental health disorders. It was a combination of my anorexia, which caused me to lose my hair due to lack of nutrition, and it was a combination of that and, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought already. It was a combination of that and trichotillomania, which is a mental health disorder that causes this irresistible compulsion to pull out your own hair. So I started losing my hair with my eating disorder pretty early, but it's hard to really track the exact progression of when it got really bad because I was also pulling out my hair at the same time, and so those two things worked together to result in my baldness. My feelings about hair are very complicated. My hair is honestly one of the biggest things that keeps me in recovery is the fact that I have hair, and losing my hair felt like losing a piece of myself. My hair, I'm a very feminine, girly girl, and my hair has always been a huge part of my self-identity. Styling my hair, curling my hair was how I presented myself to the world. And so to lose my hair felt like I was losing a big part of myself, and I felt a lot of shame surrounding it. It was also difficult because since I am a very girly girl, I wore a wig because I felt more like myself with a wig on instead of less like myself. That's something I want to make a statement about too. So a lot of people think that if you're a girl and you lose your hair, or you are experiencing hair loss, you know, you should just like shave your head completely, go out, be loud, proud with your bald head. There's nothing wrong with that. I admire that. There were times that I did that. I would shave my head and I would go without a wig. But for some people, you wear the wig not to hide from the world, not to hide your real self from the world, but because your wig makes you feel more like yourself. And my wig did make me feel more like myself. But at the time I was wearing a wig, I was also substitute teaching, and I would get bullied. Even as a teacher, I would get bullied by the kids, especially in the middle schools and high schools I was in, for having on a wig, and that really contributed to my eating disorder and my feelings of self-hatred towards myself. So my hair also contributed to me descending even further into my eating disorder, and it was a very dark spiral. Recovery with nutrition has helped my mental state and has helped me to not as compulsively pull out my hair, but it is also the nutrition that I've been receiving has been restoring my hair to a healthy state and not to be so brittle and falling out in clumps. So yeah, so that is my long story about hair. And the next question is a very important question, and that is, what would you tell someone at their worst? So this is a tricky question, and the reason I say that is because people with eating disorders are notoriously unaware of their own state of being. So when a person has an eating disorder, usually they don't realize when they're at their worst. And even if they do realize it, they don't see their worst as still bad enough to warrant treatment. Most people with eating disorders, you're not sick enough or you're not thin enough basically until you're dead. So what I would say is, don't wait until you are at your worst. I would say get help now. If you think you have a problem with food, if you think you may have an eating disorder, go see someone who can diagnose eating disorders. Call a hotline that can maybe screen for some symptoms and signs. Just don't wait until you are at your worst. However, if you do recognize that you're at your worst, or if you're at a place where you have sought treatment but like mentally you feel like you're at your worst, I would just say to you that you are absolutely worth getting better, and that there is a life outside of your eating disorder. As hard as it is to see, there is life outside of your eating disorder, and it is a beautiful life. And I believe that you can get to that beautiful life if you just keep going. It's one step at a time, one bite at a time, one day at a time. You can make it, and you are worth it. So the next question is, what keeps you motivated? I have an amazing support system. So my family, my church, my work have all worked together to keep me in recovery. And of course my mental health team. I can't forget them. That would be pretty bad to forget them. But they have all provided me with a kind of grace and love and support that has made it not an option to not continue in recovery. I've slipped up. I still struggle. I don't want anyone to be under the impression that I don't still struggle, because I do a lot, and sometimes more than other times. But I see all of the things that I have now that I did not have a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I'm so grateful for those things, and I really don't want to lose those things again. I guess that I have had a taste of what life is like outside of an eating disorder, and if I have one little taste, it's so delicious that I want the whole meal. So that's what keeps me motivated. Okay, the next question is, what is the hardest part of staying in recovery? For me, the hardest part of staying in recovery is acceptance. And that is acceptance that if I want to live, if I want to survive, if I want to not die, just to be blunt, then I must stay in recovery. So accepting the things that come along with that is very challenging. Of course, there's the obvious thing of accepting the body that I have. One thing that is really hard for me a lot of the time is accepting that my recovered body isn't going to look like someone else's recovered body. I feel like sometimes my recovered body isn't small enough. Sometimes I see my recovered body as a failure to have done recovery right. I feel like sometimes, well, my body would be smaller if I hadn't, taken recovery so far. There's still parts of me that feel like they have to hang on to the eating disorder to still have a more acceptable body, but I have to accept my body as it is. But it's also just accepting the things in my life that go on, or the things in my life that I have not achieved, that drive me to want to engage in the eating disorder. So having to find ways to accept those things about my life and to cope with those things without resorting to the eating disorder, that is an incredible challenge, and it's very difficult. It's hard to accept a new way of doing things. Okay, so the next question is a question that I really appreciate a ton, and that question is, what are things that people who do not battle this disorder could do to help those that may be battling said disorder? So I would say that this is like a two-part question. So there's the kind of help that you can give someone who's battling an eating disorder who has not yet been diagnosed or is not yet in recovery. And then there's things that you can say or do to help people with an eating disorder who are seeking and engaging in the steps of recovery. So for this first part of this question, those people who are not seeking help or recovery, I would say that do not be afraid to approach them about it. Are they going to get mad at you? Yes, probably. They will probably be very angry with you. You could even lose some friends. I'm warning you, because eating disorders are nasty, and people become nasty when they have an eating disorder. I was that way. People with eating disorders don't want other people to tell them they have an eating disorder. And don't go to someone if you suspect they might have an eating disorder and say, I think you have an eating disorder. You know, express your concerns to them. Give them examples of why you are concerned. You know, if it's someone who's a minor or someone who has a good support system, maybe go to those people in that support system and speak to them about it as well. Just encourage someone to seek help if you believe that they may have a problem. You know, don't do things like try to make them recover yourself. Like, don't try to be the one who rescues them. Don't be the one who tries to make them eat. Don't be the one who tries to make them stop exercising or purging or whatever it might be. I would say just approach them with your concerns and help them find different things that they can do. Help them find their options for seeking treatment. You know, help them find ways to maybe pay for treatment if that is something that you're able to do. And I'm not saying you have to financially pay for their treatment, but like, for example, when I was first seeking treatment, I was very ill physically. You know, I was dying, and I didn't have health insurance. And the time period that I was having all these medical tests and things done was also outside of most open enrollments for insurance. So what I really needed was an advocate who could help me get insurance when there wasn't an enrollment period happening for insurance. And so there might be different things that you can do to help people in a very practical kind of way. On the flip side, if your friend is in recovery, they're in treatment, and maybe they're talking to you about how their struggles, or you just see them struggling through recovery, I would say and this sounds so cheesy and such a pat answer, but really just being there, being a presence, and letting them know that you're not going to leave them is a really huge deal. A lot of people with eating disorders do like maybe having a buddy to share meals with. That might be going physically to a meal with somebody. Don't necessarily talk about the food, but just like be present in that meal together. If you can't physically go to a meal together, you can always like Zoom each other or FaceTime each other and like be with them as they're eating. A lot of times distraction helps a person eat when they have that very tangible fear of food. Another thing I would say is don't make any comments whatsoever about their body. Or I would even go so far as to say don't make any comments about their physical appearance. Don't say things like, oh, you're still beautiful. Don't say things like, oh, you look so much healthier now, because really well-intentioned comments can be taken and twisted by the eating disordered mind so easily that it's best really just to say nothing at all. Okay, so this next question is, my question would be, how did it get started? Is it a conscious decision of, I'm going to start doing these things, or did it slowly creep its way into something? So the answer is yes and yes. When an eating disorders start differently for every single person. I'm going to say that right up front. For me, I experienced a kind of traumatic hospitalization for my depression and anxiety, and after that, I kind of just stopped being able to eat. It was a very tricky situation. But for some people, it starts out as, I'm going to lose a few pounds, and then progresses into something more. Some people do try to get an eating disorder, especially now in this day and age when they are so sensationalized. But I will say that once a person has an eating disorder, they don't want an eating disorder. Most people with eating disorders do realize to some extent that what they're doing is irrational. However, most people with eating disorders don't realize the extent of the damage that they are doing to themselves, even if they know it, like even if they have the knowledge of it, or like they know it cognitively, it doesn't register in a way that wants to encourage you to change your behaviors. And once you are in your eating disorder, it operates very much like an addiction. It's a high. The hunger is a high. It's really hard to describe, but it's something that you keep engaging in because it makes you feel good. It makes you feel powerful, even as it makes you feel terrible. And once you get in, no matter how irrational you realize you're being, you can't get out. So having an eating disorder is never a conscious decision, even if you do at some point make a conscious decision to engage in some type of behavior. I hope that makes sense. The next question is, how did you realize there was a problem? Were you self-aware, or was it family intervention? So it was a little bit of both. It was a lot of intervention of friends. So I would talk a lot about this weight loss journey that I was on, and some of my friends expressed concern until one of my friends actually told me, hey, you know, if you don't get help, I'm going to make you get help, is essentially what my friend told me. Other friends reached out to me, like on Facebook, after some pictures that I had posted, and told me that they were very, very worried about me. Family friends were asking my parents and my brother if I had cancer. People were expressing concern a lot, and so that helped me to kind of become aware that like something wasn't okay. Did I think I looked sick or anything like that? No, absolutely not. I felt fine. One of the big things that made me realize I needed help didn't have to do with the way my body looked, and it didn't have to do with physical symptoms at all. It had a lot to do with how isolated I felt, and I realized that literally my entire day, every single day, was being taken up by my eating disorder. I was like leaving home in the morning, calling sick into work, and then just literally driving around looking for places where I could park and go run for hours and hours and hours, and avoid food. And like it got to be a lot, and I got tired of literally always running and never getting anywhere. So that made me decide, okay, I want my life back. I want to be with people again. I want to be with my family again. I want to sit down to a family dinner again. So that's kind of where my seeking help journey got started. The next question is, what was the fear that led to the eating disorder? That I'm still working on identifying exactly. I've always been a perfectionist, for one thing, and I think that a big part of my eating disorder was me feeling like I had failed in my adult life so far. And like, especially once I graduated from school, I didn't have anything to work towards that I could try to succeed in, anything that I could be good at anymore. And so my eating disorder became a way to protect myself from failure, and a way to try to have something that was my own, that made me independent, supposedly, and that I could be good at when I felt like I had nothing else, and when my self-esteem was very, very low. The next question is, what steps can a person with an eating disorder take to ensure it doesn't happen again? Wouldn't I like to know? No. So this question, I think, is where your support system really comes in. I don't think there's anything you can do to ensure it won't happen again. All you can do is take recovery one day at a time and try to make the right decisions every single day. And then when you fall down, when you fail, get back up again and keep going and keep trying to get better. Reminding yourself why you're in recovery in the first place. Keep your support system open. Continue seeing a dietitian even when you don't think you need to anymore. Continue seeing a counselor even when you think you don't need to anymore. Just keep your support system, like your lines to your support system, open, and make good choices every single day. Okay, so the last question makes me a little bit nervous because I do have thoughts about this question, and I'm not sure how it's going to be received by everyone watching this video. But the question is, how can I be supportive to your needs while also meeting my own goals on the other side of the spectrum by needing to lose weight, control portions, and make healthier, low-calorie recipes for optimal health? So the first thing I would say to a question like this is, what is your end goal in your personal journey? Is your end goal to lose weight, or is your end goal to be healthier? I would say that in reality, no one's end goal should be to lose weight just for the sake of losing weight alone. I would say that better health is really the only goal a person should work towards. Now, if that involves weight loss, I recommend, especially if you know that there's people in your community who have eating disorders, or even if you suspect it, because probably somebody in your community does have an eating disorder and you don't know it or they don't know it. But putting all that aside, I would say that instead of talking about your journey as a weight loss journey, talk about it as your health journey. Instead of posting on social media pictures of yourself saying, I lost X number of pounds, why don't you post on Facebook the results of your blood work that has vastly improved? Things like that. I know this is very personal for people, and I don't want to devalue the hard work people have put in to different, to setting and meeting different goals in their lives, but I do think that it's very dangerous and to talk about weight loss as like the most important and biggest thing a person can achieve. I support you in your health journey, and I encourage you in your health journey, but just make sure that what you're doing is healthy. And things like restricting your caloric intake significantly, things like exercising beyond the point of exhaustion, all of those things are disordered behaviors. You can have disordered eating behaviors without having an eating disorder, and it's really easy to slip into that if you start following diets and things that are not recommended by dietitians, that are registered dietitians or doctors. So yeah, so I know that that's kind of a hard question, and I hope I haven't hurt anybody's feelings by answering it, but that is kind of the way that I feel about that. So if you watched this video and listened to me ramble this far, thank you so much. I hope that this video can continue to spread awareness about eating disorders. If you are someone that you know is struggling with eating disorder, or you think that you may be struggling, I'm going to leave down below the number for the National Eating Disorder Association hotline that you can call. If you have any other questions about eating disorders, feel free to comment below and ask those questions, and maybe I'll make another one of these videos. But I hope that you guys take care. Also, for you Disney fans out there, is not my shirt the cutest thing? I got this at Box Lunch, and it finally came in the other day, and I got to show you the back. It says the 100-Acre Wood. So there's my little splash of Disney in this video, so it still can count as a Disney channel. But anyway, I hope that you are all doing well. I hope that you are all nourishing yourself, taking care of yourself, and stay blessed, guys. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.